You're very welcome along to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. It's good to have the Premier League back, I'll be honest with you. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined by a regular duo of Mark O'Hare, Adrian, Clarke, refreshed for after the international break to get going for 4 consecutive weeks. Plus, there'll be Champions League and stuff in there as well. So plenty of content coming your way on Matchbook over the next few weeks. Quick reminder to like and subscribe or follow wherever you're watching or listening. Timings are available in the description. I know they're quite popular for people. If you want to go from match to match, we're actually covering the North London Derby, the 4th game. So if you do want to skip ahead and listen to that, or if you're listening on Sunday, check the description wherever you're watching or listening. We have our £5 money back podcast bet builder special coming back to you as well. It's actually going to be in Bournemouth, Chelsea. So again, check the timestamps. Looking forward to combining the guys with a risk-free bet for anyone listening to the podcast. You get your money back as a free bet up to £5 by Monday morning if the bet loses. And then finally to say, check out the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Invariably, we are best price on that odds checker grid if you're looking for value on the singles. But if you're looking for your sportsbook element, we do have the Bet Builder product, which has proven very, very popular for people who just want to have a small bet on an individual match. Do check that out on Matchbook. We have the best of both worlds. But the 4 games we're going to cover, for those new listeners, we're covering 4 marquee games a week: Southampton, Manchester United, Villa versus Everton, Bournemouth, Chelsea, and the North London Derby. We'll have an EFL section along with rest of the world, Europe, other prem bets, and then we have our long shots and best bets. Best bets have done very well this season so far. So yeah, lads, let's get into it, and we'll start with the early kickoff. Southampton versus Manchester United. There seems no rest for United fans here. Straight into it after the international break. Southampton 4.7 to Manchester United, who are 182. The draw is 4.1. Both teams to score is 168. The Asian handicap line sees Southampton get a 3/4 goal head start. 2.5 is the goal line. So, Adrian, welcome back here. It's Eric Ten Hag, away to newly promoted team. How are you feeling for Manchester United fans going into this?
Hello, everybody. Yeah, it's good to be back, isn't it? It's a big game, isn't it? It's a big game for Ten Hag to show that he has got a hold of this group. You know, it's performances haven't been diabolical. I know that they were, annihilated really by Liverpool, but in the previous couple of games they weren't as disastrous. So a lot has been made of it. It'd be interesting to see what the reaction is. I think this is probably quite a good fixture for Manchester United. You look at it on paper and you think, okay, Southampton away, tricky game, but really they haven't offered a great deal, I don't think, in the Premier League so far. I mean, making a lot of mistakes. Southampton obviously playing out from the back, and that is one area actually that Manchester United are getting better at. There's not many clear signs of progress, but their off the ball work has been better. They just weren't quite good enough to execute it against Liverpool. But the previous 2 games, I thought that was decent. The numbers are really strong on their pressing game and turnovers, etc. So I think Southampton might find it quite hard to play through Manchester United in this game. I mean, both teams have struggled, haven't they, with errors? We saw United playing out from the back against Liverpool and getting caught. So yeah, anything could happen here, I guess. United, for me, should have scored more goals. They've created some big chances this season. So that aspect of their game is functioning okay. Obviously, they've been missing the frontline striker, but yeah, I think they can go to Southampton and win. I'm not going to be as bold as to say they're definitely going to win here. I'm going to get Manchester United on the double chance just to play it safe. I don't see them losing at Southampton, who they just feel short to me, Southampton, in terms of Premier League quality. United have a very, very good record against Premier League promoted sides. They've won 22, drawn 7, and lost 1 of their last 30 against promoted sides. So, they have a decent record in this kind of fixture, Manchester United. So I'm going to get them on Man United double chance and go with over 2.5 goals, because you can't really trust either defence, in my opinion. I think United can go there and score multiple goals, if I'm honest. And yeah, I think that they will get the job done probably, but if they don't, they'll be involved in a relatively entertaining draw. So Manchester United double chance and over 2.5 goals comes in just under even money at 1.96. United, according to the XG, have scored 3 goals fewer than they should have done. Maybe they'll put that right against a Southampton side that's sort of adjusting to the step up in level.
Okay, yeah. Manchester United double chance over 2.5 goals. Go to Bet Builder tab on the early kickoff on Matchbook. Mark, over to you. Are you in agreement with a lot of that?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. I think there was a small degree of optimism surrounding Manchester United this season, or at least going into the game against Liverpool, but that was quickly blown away, and we're kind of back to square one with them. But I think that's possibly a little bit harsh. Obviously, last year injuries played a big part. Their squad is looking a lot stronger at the minute, bar in the final third, really. And yeah, the changes they've been making off the field, the club's starting to try and get their act together. I was and am prepared to give them a chance this season, even despite what happened against Liverpool, because I have a degree of sympathy actually with them, because all 3 goals came from very avoidable individual errors, and that's not something Erik ten Hag can really control himself. And you could argue the match was reasonably equal before that opening error from Casemiro, who I felt had started the season in the first 2 games pretty well, actually, compared to what we saw last year. So again, I kind of have sympathy towards him with all the criticism that headed his way after that match too. But Ugarte's in the club now. I think he'll be a real asset. Whether he'll come straight into the side or not, we don't know, because he's been in South America this midweek. But he's a real terrier in midfield. He'll do a lot of dog work for United, and I think he will be an asset for them. But yeah, the squad is starting to look stronger in attack. They're creating chances, as Adrian said, still lacking that available standout striker. But defensively, I guess there has to be a question mark over De Ligt after his international performances for the Netherlands, which was a complete horror show, really. But if those individual issues can get sorted, then they should be and are warranted fair favourites here, and deservingly odds-on favourites. But do I really want to trust them at that kind of price? Not quite yet. So the way in which I will want to get them on side is to actually back them to win the game. That's fine, but include under 4.5 goals, which boosts that price from 1.8 to 2.32. And I feel that's much more palatable, because I do want to be with United, but not quite at odds on. But at 2.3, I can give them that degree of faith, really, because excuse me, Adrian mentioned their record against promoted teams. Well, actually, away from home against bottom 8 sides under Erik ten Hag, they've been very consistent. Last season, 6 wins from 8. The season before, 7 wins from 8. So that's 13 wins from 16 trips to bottom 8 teams, which is very decent, actually. And, may not have always been brilliant in those fixtures, but they tend to get the job done against the lesser lights. So agree. I'm also unconvinced with Southampton. I was coming into the season. They were the better side against Newcastle before and after the red card, but dominated, couldn't get the goal. Then they were dominated themselves at home to Forest, of all sides, lost the shot count 23-5, generated just 0.14 expected goals, had just 2 shots in the box, and then the deserved 3-1 loss at Brentford. So again, created very little from open play, but allowed a lot of XG, a lot of shots inside the box too. So if Brentford and Forest can create 6 big chances each, that's a concern. And remember, of course, this is a defence that conceded 2 goals fewer than relegated Birmingham in the Championship last year. 2 of the 3 centre-halves were in the side that finished bottom of the Premier League 2 years ago. So, yeah, I think they're lacking in both boxes. Spent a lot of money, but, yeah, I have issues with the sort of top-tier quality that they've brought in. So I think United will be able to get the job done in a match that doesn't feature 5 goals or more.
Okay, that's Mark's selections. Manchester United under 4.5 goals is a real 50-50 call for me. I don't need this post-international break on a Thursday morning, but I will actually lean to Adrian here, because of perhaps there is some goals in the game, but also you're getting Manchester United double chance in case Southampton come out with a big performance. That's 1.96, but both selections will be available on insights.matchbook.com. Let's go to Saturday night football and 5:30 kickoff. Aston Villa versus Everton. Villa 1.52 favourites. Everton, who are 7.4. The draw is 4.7. Both teams to score, yes, 185, with the Asian handicap seeing Everton get 1.25 goal head start. The goal line is 2.5. Mark, straight back to you on this one. Villa started the season well, Everton not so much. Talk to me a little bit about that Bournemouth game. 2-0 up, and with 10 minutes to go, and that happens.
I'm not sure what you can say. It's criminal, really, to allow that. I think that was the record-breaking statistic, wasn't it? The biggest lead at that particular stage of a season in Premier League history, to throw it away and lose it. Felt for Everton, felt for Sean Dyche, but you can't have too much sympathy if you chuck away a game in that sort of manner and kind of state the obvious. But this is enormous now for Everton, enormous for Sean Dyche too. But I'd argue it's also a very big game for Aston Villa. as well. Obviously, Everton are in need of a huge reaction under increasing pressure now, with the club sort of verging on a takeover. But Villa, obviously, Champions League football starts next week, and that will add an extra layer of difficulty to their season. So they need to get a good result now to almost sort of bed them in nicely ahead of their sort of continental travails as well. But yeah, they started well at West Ham, were good, I thought, against Arsenal, but failed to take their chances and lost that match. Bounced back against Leicester with a victory too. So, you know, exclude penalties, and Villa have actually been comfortably better than their opposition on expected goals in all three fixtures so far. So they have been playing pretty well. They're deservingly strong favourites to win this game. I also want to be with them. I know Ollie Watkins has had a difficult start, underperforming his XG figure more than anyone else in the Premier League so far. But withdrawing from the England squad should aid his recovery, give him a bit of a breather. Duran's been out in South America, but he's had a big impact off the bench as well. So I think Diego Carlos is fit as well to feature too. So Villa will be strong. Interestingly, last year we obviously talked about their incredible record at Villa Park, but since they lost that match to end their winning streak, their return at Villa Park is 4 wins, 4 draws, 4 defeats. Pretty inconsistent. But this is Everton, and Everton's away record is sketchy at best. They've lost half of their away days since the start of last season, failing to score in 8 of those 20 and kept just 4 clean sheets. But if you drill deeper, Everton, when travelling to top 8 teams since the start of last season, just 1 point from 9 fixtures, scoring just 3 goals in those 9 games and conceding twice or more on 8 occasions. That obviously includes the 4-0 tonking they took at Spurs last month. Also includes the 4-0 smashing they took at Villa Park last August as well. So, yeah, I was looking at Villa to try and get them on side, and the way I found it was just about Villa to win and over 1.5 goals, which gets the price to 1.8. You're basically backing Villa to win by any score that's not 1-0. I think that's a nice boost on the 153 available for Villa to win on the nose. And yeah, sort of prepping for this game, I tried to kind of put my mindset into the idea that actually Everton held on to that match against Bournemouth and won the game 2-0. The match ended at 85 minutes and Everton came in here with 3 points on the board. Would I have fallen on the same bet after that? And I said yes. So, you know, I thought they did actually play pretty well for 85 minutes against Bournemouth. Calvert-Lewin was leading the line, was very busy. Iliman Ndiaye got his first start and was very impressive. So they weren't toothless at all in forward areas. But the collapse and the just their defensive duties in that final 10 minutes is difficult to pinpoint what went wrong, really, especially for a side who kept so many clean sheets last season and were actually defensively pretty strong. But yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised to see them get on the score sheet at Villa Park, but ultimately you have to side with Unai Emery and Aston Villa.
Okay, that's Villa and over 1.5 goals, 1.8. Yeah, Adrian, the concern with that collapse with Everton, it was such un-Sean Dyche-like, and people buy into Sean Dyche and you get the results. But when you start conceding goals like that, which is complete opposite of what he brings, then you got to start asking questions, I guess, of both the management and the players as well.
Yeah, well, the players mainly. I don't think Sean Dyche could have really controlled that. You've got to look at the game management of the individuals. And look, these weren't kids. A lot of the players in that Everton regard are very experienced players, but they had a panic up, didn't they? And they didn't.
But does the manager, let's just say, like even taking Calvert-Lewin off, I think at 2-1, does that create panic if they brought Beto on all of a sudden? It's like we're really hanging on here, or I guess it's ultimately the players on the pitch. You know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course you can reflect to say, did he make mistakes? Yeah, probably. I would also go as far as to say Iraola played an absolute blinder with his substitutions, really bold, really sort of dynamic with the changes that he made, one after another in that middle of the second half, and they came off, didn't they? But they've had a long time to stew on that, Everton. And having been in dressing rooms where you've lost a game and then had to wait a while for the next fixture, the training ground is not always a fun place to be. I would imagine Dyche has really got into the players, worked hard on their fitness and sort of tactical framework, because they need to. But is that going to be enough at Villa Park? And I tend to agree with Mark here. You know, they were walloped, weren't they, by Spurs? 4-0. It could have been more. And that's unlike Everton. Everton normally are able to be competitive away from home, but often fall short. But yeah, in that game, it was men against boys, really. And yeah, that is a concern. And I think Villa are a decent team. I really do. Obviously, that home record, only 4 wins in the last 12, isn't great. but I would expect them to get the job done here. They're going to target Everton's fullbacks. They're the weak links at the moment with Mikalenko, Coleman, whoever they put there. Other teams are really getting at them in the wide areas, and Villa have got excellent wide players, haven't they? Particularly Leon Bailey, who I think is terrific talent. So I think it could be a good day for him. I think it's a big call, by the way, for Unai Emery. I know that Duran has been away with Colombia, involved in the team that beat Argentina in midweek. But if you look at that, well, I've written a piece for the Premier League. I think it is up on their site at the moment on the app, analysing Duran and Watkins this season. Duran is delivering big time in terms of his all-round play, what he brings to the side, his finishing prowess, and Watkins is off colour. I think if there's anyone but Ollie Watkins, it's a no-brainer for Duran to start this game. So it will be really fascinating to see what Unai Emery does there, because Duran is only 20. He is a fast improving player, and all of a sudden, I think Ollie Watkins might not be a guaranteed starter, because I like Duran. His left foot is excellent. His movement is getting there. He's strong. He offers a physical presence, an aerial threat that maybe Watkins lacks. So, yeah, watch this space. I think Duran could be a starter very, very soon. Just very quickly, Villa have got a great recent record against Everton. 7 wins, 3 draws in their last 10 meetings. Everton have only scored once on their last 5 visits to Villa Park. It's not a happy hunting ground. I don't think it's going to be this time around either. So I'm going to go with Villa as well. I'm just going to flip it. Instead of the over 1.5, I'm going to go under 4.5, because I'm expecting them to defend with a little bit more resilience this time around, Everton, and to be quite pragmatic at times. So I'm going to go with Villa and under 4.5 goals, 1.93.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I think that just shades a bigger price too. Villa under 4.5 goals, 193, but big Polish middle for the guys there, with Mark on the over 1.5 goals. Very interested now in that striker, because watching the Leicester game, Duran changed the game for them, getting that second goal, but also everything around that as well. And Ollie not quite on form at the moment. Champions League game there as well. How does Emery prioritise where Watkins starts? Because Duran surely will start one of the next 3. So yeah, very interested in that. Bournemouth versus Chelsea, and this is going to be the Matchbook podcast money back special. So this is going to be the game, guys. 8 p.m. Saturday, and it is quite a decent game. Rare we get 8 p.m. Saturdays at the moment. Bournemouth 3.5 or 5-2 to beat Chelsea, who are around 11-10 or 2.1 to the draw is 3-1 or 4.0. Both teams to score, yes, 151 favoured with no at 2.9. Bournemouth are getting a half a goal head start, effectively double chance at 187. The goal line 3.5. So Adrian, set this game up. I mean, where do you start with trying to price Chelsea in games like this? Because their ceiling is so high, yet it feels their floor is very low at the moment.
Yeah, they're a really difficult team to pick, aren't they? Chelsea at the moment. Obviously, what they did to Wolves, 6-2, spectacular, even though there's a chaotic nature to the game. And then they'll go and draw to Palace and underwhelm. And yeah, you don't know what you're going to get, which is why I can't go with Chelsea here. I think this is a tough game for them. Bournemouth will get stuck in. Obviously, haven't had great results so far, Bournemouth, but they're a very difficult side to play against. High energy. They're going to make life uncomfortable for Chelsea. And in Semenyo and Tavernier to some degree, they've got 2 players that are lively at the moment. Semenyo's had more shots than anyone else in the Premier League this season, 17 already, which is quite remarkable, really. Tavernier has had 12 as well. So they've got players that can go and hurt Chelsea, but equally, look at what Chelsea did to Wolves. Look at, Cole Palmer, nice little rest over the international break. That was convenient, wasn't it? And then, of course, the other players that can come in and deliver inside the final third. So I think this could be quite entertaining. I'm looking at both teams to score. I'm going to leave Mark to sort of make the case for how the game might go, the outcome. But I think both teams to score feels a strong claim. It's a big price. Chelsea have conceded at least once in each of their last 17 Premier League away games. So clean sheets on the road, and Chelsea don't happen, or they haven't happened for near on a year now. So I think Bournemouth can absolutely score in the game, but can I see Chelsea scoring? Yeah, of course I can. Score 6 at Molineux. Of course they can score in this game. So both teams to score feels a strong play here. And I'm going to pair it, and this boosts the price lovely, actually, with Bournemouth to have the most corners. Bournemouth had over 7 corners per home game last season. That was the 6th highest of all the teams on their own patch. And over the course of the season, only 3 teams had more corners than Bournemouth. And that was the big three: City, Arsenal, and Liverpool. They even had more than Spurs, who were just behind them. And a team that like to sort of get forward quickly, get the ball wide, put it in, and from those kind of situations, they do often get themselves corner kicks. So they're very, very positive. I've looked at their corner count success in the matchups at home, and they've won 9 of the last 12 corner counts at the Vitality Stadium. They did actually lose it against Newcastle. They had 8 corners in that game, and Newcastle had 9. It was a little bit of a freak contest, really end-to-end and exciting. So I think Bournemouth can win the corner count. I do think both teams will score, and that boosts it really nicely to 2.88.
Okay, yeah, big price Bournemouth odds against in the most corners markets. So yeah, Mark, make the case for the outcome and which way you're going to go.
Yeah, obviously interesting match. This really looking forward to it, in fairness. I think it could be quite enjoyable based on what we've seen from both sides so far. But yeah, in terms of the betting, I feel much more comfortable supporting Bournemouth with a half-goal start at 189 than backing Chelsea to win at 2.1. For me, it's going to take time to really trust Chelsea at those kind of prices, especially in a sort of a tricky away game immediately after an international break. And yeah, I just think Bournemouth are no mugs whatsoever. I was with them against Newcastle at a shorter price, so no reason why we'll sort of desert them at a bigger price at home to a Chelsea side who we know can be erratic. But I'll bring the statistic up again. But go over the last 29 games of last season, Bournemouth was 6th in terms of the points accrued in the Premier League. So a top 6 team based on the last 29 games of the Premier League last season. That's a big sample of football, and Bournemouth showed how good they can be. So yeah, they haven't been particularly stable so far this season, but they still are unbeaten after 3 fixtures, despite losing their star striker in the summer. They're a very capable side with an excellent coach. Adrian's already alluded to his in-match tweaks against Everton, his substitutions. That's a real asset of Iraola's. He is absolutely fantastic at changing matches, making use of his substitutions as well. It makes a big difference. It's something to watch going forward. But yeah, he also knows his team were very poor for the most part against Everton, second best almost all afternoon. It was a definition of a smash and grab, really. So he'll demand an improvement. I think we will see a response. Obviously, this match being played at home as well is to their advantage. And Chelsea, of course, are difficult to read. City were pretty comfortable against them on match day 1. That's fine. No big criticism. But the 6 goals against Wolves came despite actually losing the expected goals battle on the day. They only won the shot count 14-12. The big chances count that day at Molineux read 5-5. And to win the game 6-2 based on the quality of chances, my numbers say there was basically a 70% chance they didn't win that game, but they did, and they won it emphatically. So perhaps it's a bit of a red herring. And even the 1-1 draw against Palace, actually, where they didn't create that much, but what they did create was pretty significant, and yet they weren't able to win that game at Stamford Bridge. So there's a bit of variance in their early season performances and results. Very clinical at Wolves, not so clinical against Palace. Difficult to read how we're going to get them, but I just steer clear of them at the minute in terms of backing at these kind of prices because it's kind of based on last season's form where their expected goals and underlying metrics were very strong. We saw them finish the season quite strongly, and I still think there's a bit of turbulence to come with Chelsea as they kind of get to grips with a new head coach, a new style of play. There still is quite a few injuries. There still is a lot of inconsistency in the team selection too. So as I say, Bournemouth were 3.1 at home to Newcastle. They're 3.6 here. And as Adrian says, considering Chelsea barely keep clean sheets away from home and they failed to win 60% of their away games since the start of last season, I wouldn't be having them at 2.12. So happy to oppose them at back Bournemouth plus half a goal.
Okay, that's Bournemouth plus half a goal. And let's lock in the podcast treble. So Bournemouth double chance, which is the same bet on the bet builder. Both teams to score in Bournemouth to have most corners. You'll get that treble at 4.6. All you have to do is back that treble with Matchbook and you'll get your money back. It's a free bet up to £5 if the bet loses by Monday morning. So a good fun one to cheer on there. We're very close week 1 as well. So the first week we did this. So let's lock that in at around 7-2 or 4.6 and move on to the North London Derby. And let's take a look at the betting that we have on matchbook.com. A very close game here and a tough game to call. Spurs 3.1, Arsenal 2.4. The draw is 3.8. Both teams to score. Still a short price, 155. Spurs getting a quarter goal head start in the Asian handicap line. 2.5 is the total with overs favoured at 163. Mark, give us the neutral stance on this game, because Arsenal missing Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard, all of a sudden this is a real opportunity for Spurs.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you can't get away from the team news. Declan Rice might not have been imperious Declan Rice so far this season, but his absence is a big blow. Martin Odegaard, arguably even bigger, really. And with Mikel Merino still not fit enough to play, there's a bit of a hole in that midfield. State the obvious, but there are significant misses from that Arsenal team, not just their ability, but I also think their consistency and the sort of continuity in that midfield. Last season, they started 37 and 35 Premier League games, respectively. Rice, I think, is a massive presence, but Odegaard's ability in and out of possession, only Bruno Fernandes created more chances in the Premier League last season. But actually, if you look at the open play numbers, Odegaard topped that metric. So he was the best creator in open play in the Premier League last season. But it's also, he's a great presser as well. He's great in what he does off the ball too. And if you look at their with and without record, since Odegaard signed, 66% wins in the Premier League when he started since his debut in January 2021, compared to 53% when he hasn't started. So I do think Arsenal are a lesser side without him, are a lesser side without the two of them. Absolutely. And having sold Smith Rowe, Fabio Vieira's gone out on loan, they are lacking sort of natural replacements. Jorginho, Trossard can do a job. I'm sure there's other shifts and tweaks that Arteta can do here, but it's obvious that the big losses, and the market has reacted. Spurs are about 3.9, they're now into 3.1ish, and I think that's fair. Arsenal's away record has been exceptional over the past 12 months. We know that defensively they've been super strong as well. We know they've beaten Spurs in 5 of the last 7 meetings. I think they've won their last 2 trips to Spurs as well. But this just does feel like an opportunity to go against Arsenal, because I mentioned before the Brighton game, Arsenal haven't yet been at their best for me this season. David Raya has been forced into some sensational saves against both Wolves and Villa to sort of preserve the points in those matches. Ollie Watkins, of course, missed a sitter on matchday 2 as well. So I'm yet to see Arsenal at the same level as we have become accustomed to over the last sort of 12, 18 months. Tottenham, you could say they're probably pretty Spursy at Newcastle before the break, in complete control for the large parts of that game, and chucked it away with poor finishing and decision making in the final third done by the sucker punch. But for the most part, they've been pretty good. Surprisingly, actually, only Man City have allowed fewer big chances from Tottenham so far this season. The schedule has helped in that regard, of course. But I've been encouraged by what I've seen so far as a pro Spurs punter in sort of long-term markets. And obviously, state the obvious again, but they're going to be up for this game, and they will see this as an opportunity, a real motivation. So the Spurs plus half a goal, it's just a little bit short for me to really sort of put my investment behind them. It's about 1.7, might even be below 1.7, but we can back them Spurs double chance and over 0.5 goals on the bet builder. So basically, Tottenham to avoid defeat and no 0-0 draw. I'm getting 1.83, and I think that is much more palatable and much more interesting. So happy to go against your boys, support Spurs double chance and over 0.5 goals at 1.83.
Yeah, Adrian, over to you. I guess a quick plug on your Premier League article. I think it was published yesterday. Gives people an insight into the potential lineups that Arsenal will put out, because nobody knows. But even one of them included Raheem Sterling from the start. So it's going to be key. This, I'm stating the obvious again, but it's going to be so key. Whatever our team Arsenal pick dictates how this game's going to go, really.
Yeah, it's a really big call, actually, for Mikel Arteta. One thing that I left off of that article was moving Kai Havertz into midfield, which is probably the most logical pick based on what Arteta's done previously. And they'll probably put either, Jesus up front or Sterling. But I wouldn't touch Kai Havertz. I think he's on fire at the moment up front, and I wouldn't move him. So I think it's more likely that it'll be Partey and Jorginho, certainly in the way I would look at it, to sit and be more of a double pivot with maybe a Trossard playing in the Odegaard role off of Kai Havertz. You could, of course, see Ethan Nwaneri, who is effectively Martin Odegaard's understudy, just slot into the team in the same system in a 4-3-3 with Jorginho and Partey, and then they'll leave the top 3 alone, maybe with the inclusion of Raheem Sterling off the left. I would give Sterling his debut here. I think he's looked like he's been sharp in training, and I think I think he's going to be massively up for the game, and it could be a great story, a great narrative for him to shine on debut at Spurs. So we'll see what happens. when I look at the game, I mean, I agree with everything that Mark said. Really, I mean, Arsenal haven't played a game without Declan Rice since he joined. I think one game he came on as a sub, and that's it. He's been involved in every single match, so we don't know what Arsenal are like without Declan. Martin Odegaard didn't miss very many games last season either, so to lose both is a hammer blow. And taking my Arsenal hat off, I have to look at it objectively, and I think it does change things. I would ordinarily back Arsenal to beat Tottenham at their place because Arsenal are a brilliant team. They're a superior side that are more than capable of going there and winning for the third time in a row. But 2 of the 3 in midfield out. Other issues as well, unresolved. So it puts me off, I have to say. So I'm going to reluctantly. I think the value here, and you have to be objective, the value is actually on the Tottenham double chance. I think they've got a great opportunity to either get a point or potentially win. You know, Arsenal have conceded good chances, as Mark's mentioned, haven't looked that secure. Even when we went down to 10 men against Brighton, really wobbly for 10 or 15 minutes. It wasn't the usual Arsenal, the stability that, the record speaks for itself. They've won 9 of the last 10 away, keeping 8 clean sheets. You know, Arsenal are a tough nut to crack on the road. But Villa created good chances against Arsenal. And I do think that Spurs will as well. Son, in decent form, great record against Arsenal. I think Maddison pulling into those wide areas, it will be a threat as well. And the lack of legs in Arsenal's midfield with Partey and Jorginho could leave the fullbacks exposed, because can they really get across to provide the kind of cover that maybe a Declan Rice would? So, yeah, there are some concerns there. I'm going to pair Tottenham double chance. I don't like saying it, but I'm going to pair that with both teams to score, because we know that this is one of the highest scoring fixtures in Premier League history. No other fixtures had more both teams to score land than this one. 43 times it's happened. So, yeah, I can see Arsenal exploiting Spurs' high line, and I can see Tottenham creating chances and maybe sticking one of them away. So, yeah, but I think it will be a draw. I think it will be a score draw. That's my hunch. But yeah, for this selection, it's Tottenham double chance for both teams to score. 2.15.
Okay, yeah, that's 2.15 as Adrian alluded to. We're going to lock in Mark Spurs double chance and over 0.5 goals in the game, 183, the safer option in that. Other games we covered, podcast special is the 4.6 treble on both teams to score. Bournemouth have most corners and Bournemouth double chance. We went with Villa and under 4.5 goals, Adrian selection for Villa Everton, and went with Adrian United double chance and over 2.5 goals against the Saints. Insights.matchbook.com. Full recap of all those bets. Mark, over to you. It's Air again. You're trying to take advantage of potentially undervalued in the market or overvalued in the market, and Air against Partick this weekend.
Yeah, going back to the Scottish Championship for a bit of Ayr United, they're around about 1.95 to beat Partick Thistle on Saturday, and that looks a cracking price for a team who are 4 wins from 5, unbeaten at the start of the second tier season, scoring 13 goals in that 5-game sample as well. They also enjoyed a very creditable Scottish League Cup group phase, despite being eliminated. They were very, very decent. And Scott Brown, he's the head coach there right now, has got them motoring in the right direction. They've won the shot count in all 5 championship games so far, averaging the most shots and shots on target in the division, and conceding the fewest in both metrics as well. So, very, very good in both boxes right now. Their 3 home games so far this season, 5-0, 3-2 and 2-0 home victories. And they're playing a Partick side who, whilst they did finish 3rd last season, lost out in the playoffs for promotion, they do the best work at home. They only won 5 times away from home all season last year, conceded 30 goals in 18 regular season away games. And this season already, they've been turned over at Wraith Rovers and Falkirk as well. And last weekend, they lost 3-1 at home to Alloa from League One in the Challenge Cup, which has kind of piled on the pressure to their manager Chris Doolan. So happy to oppose them against an Ayr side who are flying at the minute. So 195 on Ayr United.
Okay, we'll lock that in as a bet and move on to Adrian. You've got 2 selections in the championship. First up is mid-table derby against bottom side Cardiff, but also then the team top of the league as well. So these look pretty decent prices.
Good prices, which is why I picked them. So look, derby at home to Cardiff is a really interesting one. I was really surprised at the price. I know that Derby are a newly promoted side to the Championship, and that they're no great shakes. You know, they're not a team that's going to be pushing for promotion this season. But Cardiff are bottom. You know, they've got 1 point from 4 games. They've scored 1 goal. They've conceded 10. You know, it's been a pretty disastrous start to the campaign for the Bluebirds, who lost 5-0 at Burnley. They sort of burgled a point in the South Wales derby at Swansea. But yeah, on the road, they lost 12 of 23 last season. They did win 9, in fairness, but you know, they're not reliable on the road. And Derby, this bet is all about Derby, really. And stretching back to the business end of last season, albeit in League One, Derby have now won 8 successive home games, and 7 of the 8 have been won to 0. They've won both home games at the start of this season to 0 as well. They've beat Borough, they beat Bristol City. Pride Park, or whatever they call it these days, is a bit of a fortress. They are solid, and I don't expect this to be a pretty game. I don't expect it to be especially entertaining. But Derby do know how to grind out home wins, and Cardiff. This is a fairly fragile Cardiff side, low on confidence. So to get Derby to at a price of 2.32 to win this game, considering they've won 8 in a row, 7 of them to 0, I think represents great value.
Okay, and the second selection is top of the Championship. Sunderland having a great start to the season away to Plymouth.
Yeah, it's a long old trip, isn't it? I'd imagine that Regis Lebris will have got the players down there nice and early to prepare for the game. Tough one for the supporters, isn't it? What a beast of a journey. Look, this is the classic case of, you know, a team that I expect to be up there this season in Sunderland against a team that I fully expect to be in and around the bottom 3. And you know, you can get Sunderland on side here. I've been so impressed by them. They look really, really well coached by the new manager. They're playing with great confidence. They're moving the ball very confidently between the lines. There's a lot of fluidity about them. Their forward players are all in good shape at the moment. Loads to like about Sunderland. A lot of young players that are improving very, very quickly. And I just think he looks a smart coach, Lebris. Rooney is not on the same level probably as a coach, and he doesn't have a squad that's anywhere near as strong. And even though Plymouth have stabilised a bit after that 4-0 mauling at Sheffield Wednesday on the opening weekend, they're still conceding a lot of shots. 90 shots they've faced, which is the most of any team in the Championship by quite a way. They've faced the most shots on target as well, 30 already this season in 4 games. Plymouth, they've got the highest expected goals against. They're lucky, really, not to have been opened up on more occasions than they have in the games that have been played recently. So, yeah, I think Rooney will be really cautious here, and he won't want to go too expansive against a free-flowing Sunderland side. So I don't expect it to be a goal fest, but I do expect Sunderland rather to have too much. You know, they are vastly superior, in my opinion, particularly in regards to current form. So if you pair Sunderland to win and under 4.5 goals, you can get it at 2.16, which I think is decent. I think these two sides will be at opposite ends of the table come May.
Okay, yeah, that's 2.16 Sunderland and under 4.5 goals away to Plymouth, and Derby to beat Cardiff at home 2.32. Long shots time. Mark, over to you. It's Bundesliga this weekend for you.
Yeah, Wolfsburg, they've been underachieving for quite a long time now, considering the budget that they have available to them. But Ralph Hasenhüttl is the head coach right now. They're eager to try and get back to challenging for Europe. And whilst we're only 2 games into the new season, I think there has been a few promising signs that they might be able to feature in that shake-up. They ran Bayern Munich very close on match day 1, losing out 3-2. They were arguably the better side for the most part of that match and managed to let it slip. But they then went to promoted Kiel, won a fairly even game 2-0. But yeah, they're back at home at the Volkswagen Arena. I was a little surprised to see that underdogs in their own backyard against Eintracht Frankfurt, a side they took 4 points off last year. Now, last season, Wolfsburg went 3-3-3 in terms of wins, draws and losses against the top half at home. The 3 defeats were against the top 3, all by 1-goal margins. They beat Leipzig here. They beat Frankfurt. They held Dortmund as well. So even during a very, very disappointing season, they showed that they can raise their game for the big boys at home. and I think they can do again this weekend. Frankfurt finished 6th last season, but did only win 4 times on their travels. They were pretty flat when losing Dortmund on match day 1. I've no doubts that they can be a top half team yet again this season, but I just think it's doing Wolfsburg a bit of a disservice to have Frankfurt as favourites for this match. So to make it into long shot territory, we can include both teams to score. So Wolfsburg to win and BTTS comes in at 4-1. That's 5.0. The Bundesliga, again, has been the destination for goals, and 13 of Wolfsburg's last 18 at home have seen both sides score. Frankfurt come into this with just 2 clean sheets on their travels from the last 18 away in the Bundesliga. So expecting goals, and hopefully Wolfsburg can edge a high-scoring game.
Okay, yeah, that's 5.0 Wolfsburg and both teams to score. Adrian, 2 championship teams looking to be Premier League teams come the end of the season. Leeds host Burnley at Ellen Road. Which way are you thinking here?
Well, the long shot is Burnley, back Burnley, and you can get Burnley at 5.3, which I think is pretty appealing, actually. Mainly because I think Burnley have got a slightly stronger squad than Leeds United. Now, I know why Leeds are favourites. They're at home. Burnley have got a very new look side. There's been a huge turnover of players in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Loads leaving, but also a number of new faces coming in for Scott Parker. So that might take a while for them for us to see the best of Burnley. And I think that's maybe been reflected in some of their recent performances, where I felt the transfer window was a big old distraction for the Clarets. They went to Sunderland, didn't really play very well at all, lost 1-0, but that was at a point where no one really knew whether they were coming or going. So that's now gone, and they can look to build something fresh at Turf Moor. Obviously, this game is at Ellen Road. As I said, Leeds are deserving favourites, but for me, it's nowhere near reflective in the odds. I think 5.3 is amazing value. Leeds didn't win any of their last 3 home games of last season. So when the pressure was on Leeds, they fluffed their lines a little bit. They've already drawn 3-3 at home to Portsmouth at Ellen Road on the opening day. And I just think this is a huge game. This is a 6-pointer in terms of the promotion race. This is massive. The fans know it. Both managers know it. Both sets of players know it. And in these pressure games, Leeds sometimes, I don't want to say crumble because that's too strong, but they sometimes are affected because there's such expectation, such a desire, such a pressure on Leeds to get back up into the Premier League. I think Burnley, they've got good players. Foster up front. You've got Koleosho, Jadon Anthony, who's been at Leeds. Sarmiento's coming on loan. Josh Brown, who's having a terrific start to the season. And then, of course, you've got Scott Parker and Daniel Farke, who vied for the Leeds job. Parker was on the shortlist, didn't get the gig. It went to Daniel Farke. And so I think for him, there'll be a real special sort of desire to go to Ellen Road and win this game. So, it's not going to be easy. Leeds don't lose very many at home, but this is one game they could lose because Burnley have quality. So 5.3, I think, is a decent long shot.
Okay, let's lock that in. It's championship all the way for Adrian. 3 selections in the championship, so hoping for a big weekend. Mark's made, of course, being Scott Parker, so no say.
Was he shaking his head as I was?
He was shaking. You should have seen him behind the scenes here, Adrian. I have access to it there. He's just shaking his head.
Yeah, he's
switch off when I hear his name.
Scott Parker, isn't he? Yeah.
Best bet time. Both the guys are 2 out of 3 so far this season. Pretty solid if we get to the end of the season with that record, Mark. So take it away. It's league on for you.
Yeah, Marseille versus Nice on Saturday afternoon. A bit of a Côte d'Azur derby. Now, Roberto De Zerbi is the head coach at Marseille now, and predictably, things have been pretty lively since he's gone into that gig at the Velodrome. Marseille have scored 10 goals across their first 3 league games. They've also conceded on 4 occasions as well. Those 3 matches have all seen both teams score land. They've also seen over 3.5 goals land. So I'm going to back over 2.5 goals for this match against Nice. It's 1.8. It's a price I don't believe will be there in a couple of weeks when this fixture might have taken place, just because the market is taking time to adjust to the De Zerbi way of life in Liga. We've seen it at Sassuolo in Serie A. We've seen it with Brighton in the Premier League. It's no real coincidence that Marseille's matches have been pretty entertaining so far. They've done some really good business over the summer by French standards, and they look like the potential challengers for PSG if they were to sort of fluff their lines at the top. So they're playing a Nice side who are also under new management. Franck Hayes took the job this summer after working miracles really with Lens in recent years, and they've improved after an early hiccup as well. But yeah, a very similar theme really. So Nice were dreadfully dull, pretty boring for the last couple of seasons, but things have changed under Francaise. They've been very good going forward. In fact, their expected goals data across the first 3 matches is higher than that of Marseille's, and all 3 matches have seen both sides score. 2 of those 3 games have also seen over 2.5 goals collect as well. And yeah, Nice will come here and attack Marseille, give them a good go, and hopefully the 2 teams will play out an entertaining game. So over 2.5 goals at 1.8 is the play for me.
Okay, best bet on the board for Mark. Adrian, I felt it was a big point for Palace against Chelsea, given they'd went 0-2 to start the season. Not the worst performances, but they were where they were. They entertained a Leicester side, who I guess will be buoyed a bit by not having to go through a points deduction this season.
Oh, definitely. What a bonus it is for Leicester fans. I mean, I know a lot of Leicester City fans, they couldn't believe it. They'd written off the season, and now all of a sudden they've got a fighting chance of survival. They're still up against it. I think we've seen that in the early weeks. Spurs really wiped the floor with them, beaten of course at home to Villa as well. Albeit they ran them close towards the end of that game. Went to Fulham and were competitive, but did probably deserved to lose that game. So it's going to be tough for them. They have a terrible record in London. Just 2 wins in 16 Premier League games. And no, Mark will be shaking his head thinking that doesn't make any difference. But look, it's a pattern. They don't tend to win these kind of fixtures in the capital. Palace have a brilliant record against Leicester. They've beaten them 9 times in the Premier League. They've not beaten anyone more often than they've beaten Leicester City. And look, at home to Leicester, this is where Palace have to get their season started. This is one they've earmarked it. This is 3 points. We must win this game, and I think there'll be a bit of excitement around the ground. Eddie Nketiah there, Eza back from England duty. I thought he looked pretty sharp. You've got Mateta as well. I think this is a chance for the sort of new look Palace because it's not dramatically different, but it's still 1 or 2 little tweaks in there compared to last season. No Elise, of course. It's time for them to get their season going, and I expect them to swat Leicester aside. I do. I think that first goal probably wins it, and Leicester have a terrible record scoring the opening goal in Premier League matches. I think this happened twice in their last 24 games. Both teams have been conceding early goals and having to fight back. I think if Palace score first here, they can run away and have quite a routine home win. And that's how I see this one playing out. So if you think there'll be goals, and I do, because Selhurst Park, weirdly, it used to be low scoring ground, didn't it? Roy Hodgson, a little bit dour. Not anymore. Last 16 matches at Selhurst Park have averaged 3.7 goals a game. Really much more sort of value for money for a ticket at Selhurst these days. And I do think there'll be goals. Maybe not that many, but I'm going to back Palace to win and over 1.5. So basically, I'm just saying they're going to win the game, but it won't be 1-0. And you can get that at even money, or 1.99 the last time I looked. So for me, that's a decent value bet.
Okay, best bet on the board. My thanks to Adrian and Mark. If you want a full recap of anything we talked about here, insights.matchbook.com. And we will be back Monday, recording all going well, to kick off the new Champions League season. Complicated enough format, but the games themselves, looking at game week 1, match day 1, as they call it, look quite decent. So yeah, looking forward to that. I think there'll be a bit of more interest in the group stage this season as we build up to the knockout stages in that competition as well. But until then, we will chat to you next Monday. Enjoy the weekend's football, and if you're having a bet, let it enhance the enjoyment, but please do so responsibly. We'll see you on Monday. Bye bye.